Hello, fellow gamers. It is Thursday, so we are going to talk about recent gaming news here at the Video Gamers Podcast. Thank you for listening. Make sure to rate our show 5 stars and follow us on socials everywhere at Video Gamers Pod. I am your host, Paul, and joining me, he's a huge fan of Assassins and Samurai. I can't wait to hear his thoughts for an upcoming game that features both. It's Josh.
We'd like to call them ninjas, Paul. Okay, not assassins. They're ninjas and samurai.
Last I checked, it's not called Ninja's Creed, Josh.
It's called Shinobi is technically the right term. But.
Shinobi Assassin. Yeah. All right, well, we'll get around to that. And then joining Josh and me, we found out that he is a huge Valve fanboy after our top 5 shooters of all time episode on Monday. Today, we're going to talk about what might be their next release. It's Ryan.
I just want to say I'm a little disappointed in the lack of people that played Half-Life 2 in our Discord.
They're just too young. It's not their fault.
It's an older game,
man.
I know.
I give them a pass, but they gotta, like, if you don't have it, you gotta get it and you gotta check it out.
If you were born in 2000 or later, I don't fault them for it, and I do think it's tough to play now, but my goodness, if you were around for Half-Life 2 at release, man, one of the all-time bests. All right. You know what? Let's just start there, guys. Let's start with Valve. All right.
All right.
I like this story. This is going to be fun to talk about. So Valve's next game seems to have leaked online. We've seen a lot of credible information from well-known leakers. The next game that they are releasing seems to be a 6v6 third-person hero shooter called Deadlock. We got to see some screenshots. It looks to be very similar to Team Fortress. Maybe you could say Overwatch with some MOBA elements. They say it's got tower defense mechanics, which I'm really interested to find out more. They say it's got magicians, weird creatures, and robots. I'll be honest, I'm not too sure what to make of all this. Based on what we have seen, and by the way, the game is called Deadlock, I guess I should mention that here. So based on what we have seen with these screenshots and some information that was shared on Twitter, do you guys see Deadlock as something that might be able to compete with the big boys like Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege, and Valorant, and like other hero shooters? What kind of stood out to you guys?
Number one, it's Valve. So I have all the faith in the world that they can pull this off. Like, has Valve made a bad game?
Probably a long time ago, but not recently.
Right, but that's kind of the point, right? Is if they have, like, nobody remembers it. We just remembered the absolute bangers. I am a sucker for hero shooters, number one. I'm fed up with Overwatch, number two. So give me a replacement for that. Like, honestly, Marvel Rivals is looking pretty good to me right now because it's kind of like I gave up Overwatch, but man, I miss it sometimes, you know? And so I really want something to kind of fill that void. I've never been a fan of MOBAs, though. Like, I'm not into League of Legends. I'm not into Dota 2. I don't like the whole lanes thing and all that stuff. But if anybody could do it, it's Valve. And then if you're putting it in a third-person shooter, that changes things a lot for me. And I am super excited if this winds up being true, number one. I mean, it seems pretty credible. We don't generally cover rumors that we don't think or at least have like a lot of truth to them. So the fact that we have screenshots, this seems like a Valve type thing. You know, it's ripe for a need in the market as far as that goes. This gets me very excited. The screenshots you see 6 characters on each team with their little portraits and stuff like that. What is really cool is you see a map with the lanes. Like, down in the bottom right corner of the screenshot as well. I don't like League of Legends and Dota and stuff like that, but if this was a third-person shooter where I'm saying, hey, Paul, hey, Ryan, I'm going to push left lane, you guys go up middle, and then I can use my skills in a shooter to try to take out their defenses and flank or something like that, this opens up a world of strategy and skill that I absolutely feed off of in games like this. I would be over the moon if this turns out to be true and has that classic Valve quality.
Yeah, and 6v6.
Yeah, which is what it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great. I love the thought of the rail system. And I did the same thing. I started kind of picturing us playing that map and how we would push and we're taking this rail and then we could go kind of coordinate together. Like, how sick would it be just to get that old like Overwatch flavor kind of feeling again, where you just hop in and you just can just everybody, like we talked before, everybody gets on, everybody is playing every night, and it's a game that's just so much fun and enjoyable that you get sucked into. So yeah, the 6v6, the way everything looks, I'm excited. I really, really hope this turns out to be something that we can all get into. With the screenshots too, like Grey Talon looks pretty sweet. Like I think, you know, I hope that these characters, which is the guy in the screenshot that we saw, turn out well and stuff. The one thing that bums me out a little bit is, you know, with Valve, I just hate to see the other, you know, IP just sitting on the shelf. Like there's other things that I want more than something new, but you know, who knows if we'll ever get that.
Yeah. Half-Life 3 at this point might be just never going to release. So I will say the one thing that probably scares me the most is that IceFrog, who was the main person leading the Dota 2 development, seems to be in charge of Deadlock. If that's the case, I think this game is going to be far closer to something like that or Valorant, as opposed to something like Overwatch or Orcs Must Die, which are obviously far more casual. So if it does skew a little bit more competitive, those communities just tend to turn so toxic so fast. I have a little bit of concern there. Did the graphical style resonate with you guys, or did you find that to be an issue? Because I did see a lot of people rail on the way the game looks.
It kind of looks like Overwatch to me. I mean, it's got that kind of cartoony nature. I mean, I'm looking at some screenshots of like a city that they're in. It's
kind of a little gray.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little gray.
A little drab.
But if you're looking at like the character Grey Talon, he's got all this neon green glowing stuff around him. I mean,
you mean Hanzo?
Yeah, I mean, basically. But I'm okay with that,
He's Hanzo.
Yeah, take Overwatch and improve it, and I am in 100%. I mean, honestly, if somebody's going to go back to the original Overwatch, what made it great, and they're going to say, listen, we're going to add our own little touch and our own little spin on this, but you're going to be able to go back to the fun you had in Overwatch, I am in 1,000%. Like, you know, give me the game that I loved and then got taken away from me. I'll pay money for that.
You heard it here, Valve. That's what to do.
And one thing that's funny is that Valve is not afraid to scrap games late in development. Yeah. That's why their collection of games looks so great. So if this game's not working, they're just going to scrap it. So there's no guarantee that this game will see the light of day. We all know that Valve just prints money hand over fist with Steam, so they can scrap these big projects if they need to. So if it does see the light of day, I have a lot of confidence that it's going to be a lot of fun. Regardless, if this game came out, it's immediate, a 100% must-cover deep dive.
Yep.
That's for sure. All right, before we move into our next story, we wanted to let you guys know a little bit about Patreon. And I know that this is something that we have brought up a lot, but it's actually the only reason that our show continues to exist. All three of us are working dads with full-time day jobs. We do our best to prepare and provide great content here on the show. It does require some expenses, and we are funded because of listeners like every single one of you hearing this right now. So if you like what we do, want to help fund what we do here at the show, you'll also get amazing perks like bonus episodes, shout out on the show, all kinds of cool stuff. Starts at $5 a month. You can take a look over at multiplayersquad.com. All right, moving on. This week also brought us the official world premiere trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows, which features a female shinobi assassin and a male African samurai. It is it's inspired by some real life events from the 1580s. Unfortunately, we did not get to see any gameplay quite yet, but Ubisoft did say we will get gameplay next month. So just based on what we were able to see in the cinematic trailer, was there a lot here that got you guys excited? How are you feeling?
I mean, I love this part of Asian history. I love samurai. I love ninja. I mean, this is right up my alley. I can't even be mad at Ubisoft, man. The trailer was great.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, the setting was great. I like the dual character system that they got going on. I mean, I like that the fact that the lady was this fast, zippy, stealthy, deadly character. And then you've got the samurai dude that is beefy and strong. I mean, at one point, instead of a sword, he's got like a giant, heavy, spiked club that he's just wrecking fools with at that point. And I was just like, I mean, Listen, I don't normally get excited about a cinematic trailer. Anybody can make a trailer that looks like anything. It tells me absolutely nothing about your game itself, right? Gameplay might come out and it might look like every other Assassin's Creed game that has ever existed, and I might lose interest really quickly. But for now, it was a good trailer, man. And I'm hopeful that they're really going to lean into this dual character system. And it's like, dude, I feel like playing stealthy and fast. I'm going to play the ninja girl, or I want to really just focus on some, man-to-man combat with my katana or, that kind of thing. And so I'll play the samurai guy. I mean, I like that option to play the game kind of how I want, if that's actually the route that they're going, which is kind of what I'm hopeful for. So as much as I love to just kind of be skeptical of Ubisoft, at least for this cinematic trailer, they got my attention. And I'm very curious now. Like, as soon as they announce a gameplay, I will be checking out the gameplay.
Nice. Yeah. If only trailers released with gameplay anymore. But having said that, I got legit goosebumps watching that trailer. I was so excited. It's been a long time since I've played an Assassin's Creed game, and I am not curious. I'm not wait and see. I am 100% in on this. It hits all the marks for me. I love the ability, the thought of being able to just be a bruiser, go in there and just have kind of open fight area and just wreck a bunch of guys. And then you can do the, your nice stealthy assassinations too. So having that different kind of well to dip from for the different flavors in the game is so cool to me. So I'm beyond excited. It's just, we got to wait.
Yeah. I will say that there's a lot to love inside this trailer. I mean, who doesn't love assassins passing secret notes with targets on it, and then having, little mechanical devices hiding your daggers? I mean, everyone loves that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the cinematic trailer I thought was incredible. I want to see some gameplay. Same as you, Ryan. It's been a minute since I last played an Assassin's Creed. I did dabble in Odyssey, but it didn't really hook me. The last one that truly hooked me was Black Flag. I know all of us were interested in Mirage. The timing just didn't work out with all the games that we cover. I'd still like to play Mirage at some point, but this trailer got me pretty excited. It got me excited enough to look up the character of the Black Samurai.
Yeah, isn't that his name? Yasuki?
Yeah, Yasuki. So yeah, I was like reading up on him a little bit, where for that time and day, travel was just so impossible that in Japan, when those people met him, he was the first African they had ever seen. And a lot of people didn't even believe that his skin was black. They thought that it was like some kind of, something that he put on his skin. And so the whole idea of like this guy traveling halfway across the world and ending up in Japan and being so central to all these events sounds like a lot of fun to me. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, same way I was with Mirage, and I hope we get a chance to play this. It is set for release November 15th, and as time goes on, I think we're going to see more and more games slated for release around then. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Dragon Age 4 ends up coming out around the same time. We'll probably get a few others. So we'll just kind of have to see if it fits the schedule, is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I have to give them credit. This trailer was meant to draw your attention, and that's exactly what it did. Like, it worked on me 100%. It was good enough, and it was well done enough, and it showed me glimpses of what I hope the game has, that it did its job. Like, I am very curious now to see what happens when they release actual gameplay footage of this.
Totally agree. So yeah, might be shelling out some money to Ubisoft later this year, even if it doesn't feel
weird. It kind of feels gross.
We're gonna have to buy it for him and gift him the game so he doesn't have to dirty his hands.
I've said if they give me a good game, man, I'm fine giving them my money for.
Well, it's here, November 15th.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sure hope so.
I don't want to say I'm skeptical, but history with Ubisoft makes me a little skeptical.
And just with Assassin's Creed in general. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break for a couple ads, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about Ubisoft.
If you're an athlete, the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
All right, coming back from break, let's talk a little bit about another IP of Ubisoft. Now, I would say that our show has been a pretty big proponent of the Division series. I think all three of us have said we enjoy them.
Yeah. Yep.
Unfortunately, we did get a little bit of sad news. So as you guys might remember, there was an upcoming free-to-play spin-off called The Division Heartland. It was announced back in 2021. It was set to take place in the heartland of the US instead of a major city like Manhattan or DC. And the game has been canceled. So the game was designed to be an extraction shooter with PvEVP elements. Ubisoft says that the move of canceling it will allow them to devote the resources to other properties like X-Defiant, which just released, and Rainbow Six. I have some mixed feelings on this, but ultimately I think it was probably the right move, but I was kind of curious to hear what's your guys' reaction to this cancellation.
Bummed, man.
It is a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, more Division sounds good.
Yeah, more Division. I just wish, because I mean, too, I think I was reading, correct me if I'm wrong, but first it was supposed to be, I think they had it an idea as a battle royale. Then it went to extraction shooter. Then it's canceled. It's almost like, they just kind of didn't have that solid path on where this game was going to go. But it's just a bummer, man. More Division is better for everybody. I wish it could be something to where it was kind of transferred into maybe like a DLC type package instead of its own standalone game. But just stinks, man. I feel like more than ever, maybe it's just because of the internet and how we can communicate so rapidly. I just feel like so many games are getting scrapped nowadays. I don't know. Does it seem like that to you guys too?
It does.
And late.
Yeah,
Late stuff, like the
late
survival game by
kicker.
Blizzard.
Yeah, the fact that we're seeing these games that look like they're mostly developed and then getting canceled is the pill that's hard to swallow. Like if somebody's like, "Hey, we announced a game," we take it back. That's a little bit different, but I'm with Ryan on this one. I love The Division. Paul, we played it for a little while together as well. Like, very fun, entertaining game. I was a little, the Heartland, and it kind of just looked the same. So I was a little like what's going to be different other than, it's a suburban neighborhood versus a big city kind of thing. But it seemed like they were putting a good bit of effort into it. And like you said, more Division is a great thing. I mean, it was a really, really fun game. So I'm not sure why they canceled it. Like, part of me is like, could they not monetize this enough to make it worth their while? Because with it being like an extraction shooter, and I feel like you're right, Ryan. Like, I think there was like some mention or something that maybe it was going to be a battle royale or have a battle royale mode or something like that. But maybe it just wasn't very far along. When we saw gameplay footage of it, it looked fairly advanced at that point too. So it was kind of like, I thought this game was going to be out soonish, but we're not developers. Honestly, we don't know where it was at. We don't know if maybe this is like them reeling from Skull and Bones a little bit to where it's like, we don't really want to risk another live service type game where it's just not going to land, and then that soils our reputation or something like that. But I am a little sad because I liked The Division a lot. I would have liked some fresh new content to play. But on the flip side, I'm pretty darn excited for X-Defiant and the future of that. So it's like, if this means that this had to die so X-Defiant could live, it's the circle of life, baby.
So here's the thing. First of all, I think the reason that the game is canceled is that by most accounts, playtesters hated the game. So there were a lot of complaints. A lot of people said that the gameplay was incredibly monotonous with really mundane missions, and you had to run those missions just to be able to enter the late game areas. So it seems like playtesters said that the game just flat out sucked. And I don't find that hard to believe because no one seems to be able to nail the PvEVP genre. A lot of people have tried, almost all the games end up failing. And secondarily, just for me personally, I don't know about you guys, I am so over extraction shooters. This just reeks to me of trend chasing. Like, and I know Escape from Tarkov is not that old, but ever since and Tarkov did not invent the extraction shooter. Like, ironically, the Division 1 did with the Dark Zone. But ever since then, I feel like all these games try to be extraction shooters, and they all do basically the same thing. I find it to be pretty boring, and the market is way too saturated with them. So I feel like they were just trying to chase a trend. They couldn't make a good game, and it was like, okay, do we want to keep pouring money into this, or do we just cut bait? And it seems like they just decided to cut it. I'm not completely shocked. I will say, in case anyone out there is worried, like, the Division 3 is still in development. I have full confidence that'll be a good game. I loved the Division 1. Division 2 I did not play very much because of the pod, but Division 3 I will jump into, of course, right away. But I think they probably didn't have a very good product, and that's ultimately why it got cut. Skull and Bones, we know, was not a very good product either, but they were probably so pot committed with all the money there, they couldn't cancel. This was a smaller project, and I think that's why it was easier to cancel it.
That makes sense. At least hopefully it's the right choice, even though it's not the one we want.
Yeah. And we've talked a little bit about, like, what's a good period of time between game entries. And we kind of said, like, hypothetically, if it were possible, every 5 years would be great. This to me felt like, let's kind of force more Division content on the people. And I'm not sure that that'll be great. By the way, for anyone out there who is a mobile gamer, Ryan and Josh, I know you aren't, you can tune out. But for everyone else, there is a Division game called Resurgence that comes out before the end of the year, at least supposedly, and that's a free-to-play third-person shooter. So you'll have that to tide you over, I guess, until the Division 3 comes out. All right, and then moving on, let's talk a little bit about an action RPG. This will be the last story we cover here in the episode. So IGN this week released their first preview on Greedfall 2, which of course is the follow-up to the first entry, which released in 2019, honestly to kind of poor reviews, but the game did end up selling 2 million copies. And the developer, whose name is Spiders, great name by the way, they have completely revamped the combat style here for the sequel. They specifically said that they are trying to emulate Dragon Age Origins, and this has semi-real-time combat. It has the ability to pause. You can switch between all your characters, give them actions, and then you can unpause to resume gameplay. I'm very curious to hear after watching some footage. Is this a game up your guys' alley? Are you interested?
I am interested. I'm actually interested in the original Greedfall.
Of course you are.
I almost bought the original Greedfall. I know it came out to mid reviews, but a lot of people said, hey, you know, the combat in this game is fun. It's kind of just a bland world, but there's actually some pretty enjoyable gameplay here, you know, and it was a very good attempt at like making a top tier RPG, like an action RPG. And so I was kind of like, ugh, but I never picked it up, to be fair. So it didn't draw me in that much. But Greedfall 2 has taken the turn of moving it from more of a Souls-like combat to this kind of turn-based action-y combat a la Dragon Age. And it's weird, man. Like, I love the combat in Dragon Age. You know, that let your characters run, direct them sometimes, pause it to you know, make, you know, pop off a heal or something like that. I really
combo
enjoyed
abilities
that.
together.
Yeah, combo ability. But then what's really weird is like we played Pathfinder, right? And I didn't like the combat in that game. And it's very similar. So it's like it's hard to tell like what the difference is between like Pathfinder, what was it, Wrath of the Righteous, or what was that we played? Kingmaker? Something like that, right? I can't remember now, but it was like like we played that, and I remember thinking like the combat's just not jiving with me on this one. But in theory, it's the same, but it's not the same. So I don't know.
Yeah, Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous.
Okay,
is the full,
I got it
full
right
title.
then. So
yeah,
so you know, it was just one of those like I don't know what the difference is. Now I will say this: I was reading the comments on the YouTube video, and people that really liked the initial Greedfall really seem to hate this transition to this type of combat. Like, I don't know why. Again, I don't have the basis of comparison, but I know it really ruffled some feathers. I personally think I prefer the Dragon Age-like combat just because of the tactical nature that it gives you. So I'm very curious, man. I never played the first one. Don't know if this one's going to interest me enough, but at least it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm worried Ryan's reaction is going to be skewed by Dragon's Dogma, but I'm curious to hear. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
You already know what my thoughts are. I was actually laughing too because I read a lot of the comments on the video and I was like, oh, people are not happy with this. This combat system is not what they wanted. But I'm not a big turn-based guy. I don't like the idea of pausing the game. All right, let me go set this up, set that up. It's not my type. And then also, obviously I was not a big fan of Dragon's Dogma and the way that all kind of played out either. So I don't know. It's definitely not my style, not my type of game. I'm sure there's some big time fans of it that are going to like it with the way the new combat system is, but it's most likely not going to be me.
So the main reason that the game involves pausing is that you are actively controlling the abilities of everyone in your squad.
Yeah.
So as opposed to where like Dragon's Dogma 2, you have AI controlled pawns that just fight alongside. When you have to control them all, it does require pausing only because there's no way you can swap back and forth and make decisions that quickly. I hate turn-based combat, and I actually love this kind of system. I keep wanting Dragon's Dogma and Dragon Age. I keep wanting to add the S at the end. But Dragon Age Origins is in my top 10 of all time. I have it number 10 on the website. And the fact that they're flat out saying we're trying to emulate that game means I'm probably going to like it.
Yeah.
Now, I went back and watched a lot of footage of Greedfall 1, and I got to say, it looks pretty mundane to me, and it's pretty melee focused, which is not really my cup of tea. And kind of ironically, the game's not that old, but the graphics I thought actually looked pretty bad, which is also ironic because Dragon Age Origins looked pretty darn bad when it released.
Oh.
But the gameplay was so good. But like, Greedfall involves all the kinds of stuff I love in games. It's got like different choices in how you do your missions. It's got the politics. It's got romance options. It's got open world exploration. That's my kind of catnip. So I'm definitely interested, and I'm much more interested because of the new combat style.
I will say this too. This is a AA game that is shooting for like AAA quality type gameplay. Like if you watch the trailer and you have watched like the original Greedfall, like they look like AAA games, but they're not. They're made by like a AA studio. And I like that, man. I like, shoot for the stars, make the best game that you can possibly make. Again, I heard pretty decent things about Greedfall. One of those being it's like a cheap man's Dragon Age, but that's not a bad thing necessarily.
Well, even if it's a cheap version coming out in 2024,
right?
There's going to be a lot on the bone.
I get to play at that point, right? Exactly, because it's more modern than Dragon Age Inquisition is.
Yeah.
If it's a cheap man's version, I'll just take the regular one. What do I need this for?
No, because Dragon Age Origins is so freaking old that you have to like run these extra scripts. You got to do all these things with your processor cores and turn some of them off and give priority to others. It's just too old to try to play anymore. So I want a newer version. But I love the fact that Spiders has never... They've always kind of said we're trying to make like those old BioWare games. And that's kind of, I feel like we're always chasing that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like we hear that about so many games. Like every single ex-person from BioWare, whether it's Casey Hudson or others, they all go off and make their own studios and say, we're making a game like the golden age of BioWare. It really hasn't worked out that way to date.
Why is that so hard to do? You know what I mean?
Because you're comparing it to Mass Effect 2, which is
I get it.
96 on Metacritic.
I mean,
it's almost impossible to beat.
I just feel like there's not a game that's come close to like we always quote the golden age of BioWare, and it's like
KOTOR.
But that's the thing is it's games that give you choices that matter. You see the ramifications of those choices. Witcher 3 is probably the most recent like best example, and that game's how old at this point?
9 years old, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but that's
8 or 9.
Yeah, but that's probably the most recent example of a game that nailed it, where it's like, dude, what you do in the game matters, and you will see the ramifications of that later on. And that's when you're going to go, oh, shoot, maybe I shouldn't have made that choice, but now you got to live with it. I mean, even BioWare can't do it. Yeah.
Look at Anthem, look at Mass Effect Andromeda. So yeah, it's tough to chase. Like, they really just struck gold with the right people at the right time with the right kind of games. And maybe it's a mistake that people try to chase it, but I get it.
I'll take that back. Baldur's Gate 3 did it phenomenally. Honestly,
Oh,
with
okay.
the
Yeah, that's
character
true.
interactions and the choices matter and the ability to kind of approach things how you want to approach it, I'll give Baldur's Gate 3 credit in that regard. It feels different.
Totally unlike the combat style is so different than those BioWare games.
Yes, but I mean, if we're talking about those kind of BioWare feel like
elements,
right? Exactly.
Do you think like nostalgia has a little bit to play into that too? Of just even for the developers trying to get back to that feeling of creating, that golden age.
Yeah. Like, hey, remember the first time we played Halo? Let's just recreate that.
Yeah.
Like, that's easy to say, right? And that's almost impossible for anyone to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a high, tough bill to pay. All right. Well, I think that wraps up everything here for This Week in Gaming. As a reminder, please go check out Patreon support options to unlock those bonus episodes, all the other perks. You can do that at multiplayersquad.com. You can also do us a huge solid just by rating our podcast 5 stars and follow us on socials everywhere at Video Gamers Pod. Come join the free Discord. There's a link in the episode description. Come say hi to Josh, Ryan, and me. We're all in there. We want to say thank you so much to everyone for listening. Until next time, happy gaming.
See ya.
All right. See you, everybody.